Watching us.
I just got harassed at a rest stop driving to Trenton. Driving to Tesla, yeah.
Oh, no, that's dreadful. What's the world coming?
We're good to go? Okay. So, first of all, an announcement. If you're watching on streaming, we apologize for the delay. We had problems with our streaming channel through to YouTube. Just as a bit of an update to you, we chose not to proceed with a public agenda so that we could present it live. And we're about to do that. We instead dealt with our confidential session, which would normally not have been live. So we made good use of that time. But more importantly, we are now live on YouTube, and we are resuming our public meeting at this time. And I am pleased to move forward with our territorial acknowledgement that the Halton Police Board acknowledges the lands on which we gather for this meeting as the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Anishinaabeg. No matter our origins, our lives are intertwined through the shared earth beneath us, the water we consume, and the air that we breathe. As those responsible for the governance and the security of all who gather on this land we now call Halton, we are committed to the path of truth and reconciliation in our words and in our actions, and call on those watching this meeting to do the same. Mr. Committee Secretary, do we have any regrets today?
Mr. Allen's not with us this morning.
Mr. Allen is not with us? Okay. Members of the board, any disclosures of conflict of interest to declare this morning? I'm not seeing any. Members of the board, I want to draw your attention to the minutes that were circulated from our January 30th public session meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as circulated, please? Thank you, Nav. Thank you, Lisa. Any comments, questions, errors, or omissions to report? I'm not seeing any. All in favor? Those are adopted. We do not have any scheduled presentations. We have a number of information items starting at 3.1 through 3.7. Does anybody wish to separate any of those for questions or comments, or is there a motion to approve them? Ingrid?
Yeah, I just want to address item 3.7.
Okay, 3.7 is held. Anything else? I'm not seeing anything. Can I get a motion to approve the recommendations on 3.1 through 3.6, please? Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Samira. All in favor? Those are carried. For the purposes of those watching online, I will advise that we've approved the recommendations contained in Information Report 3.1, which is the financial report for full year fiscal 2024. 3.2 is the Board Trust Fund Statement and Community Fund as at December 31st, 2024. 3.3 is the gate-related occurrence summary. 3.4 is donations to the service. 3.5 is collection of identifying information in certain circumstances, and 3.6 is the status of our reserve accounts. Members of the board, members of the public, if you are interested in those items, they are available on our website at haltonpoliceboard.ca if you want to understand more about those items that we've just approved. I'm turning now to Ingrid for 3.7, which is our Organizational Wellness Unit year-end update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I read this report with great interest and wish to commend the service for the wonderful work that you have done in this area. Specifically, the reintegration, I think, is to be commended because we all know how difficult it is once a person has been away from work to come back. There are a lot of factors at work during that period. So it's a wonderful report, and during the break I had the pleasure of meeting Inspector Stephanie Jameson. So welcome to the unit. Congratulations on your promotion. So keep up the great work. It's so important in terms of looking after our people. We know how complex the world is and the challenges that come with it. So kudos to you, and may it continue. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments on this particular item? Yeah, I'll share something and then I'll come to the chief. Oh, sorry, it was Deputy Hill? Okay, I want to share something first though before we do that. Most of you know that I'm on the board and on the executive of the Canadian Association of Police Governance. And I've got to tell you that at conferences and even during meetings, I hear about Halton's wellness unit all the time. many look to this service for many things that we are leaders on and in, and you folks are leaders in, but this is one that continually comes up time after time. So it's obviously, I know that from talking to many of the members of our service, they're very appreciative, but even outside of the service and the policing sector, there seems to be a lot of support for what you and your team does in terms of wellness and the importance that you put on, and the fact that we even specifically called it out in our strategic plan speaks well to everybody and their attention to this critically important aspect of our work. So congratulations to everybody involved. Ingrid, can you move the, oh, I'm sorry, Chief had a comment, and then Deputy Hilton. No Deputy Hilton.
This was a live auction. I just bought a car by mistake.
That's what happened to you. No, I was just going to say, I think we continue to make this even better, and it's probably, I was speaking to some association members from other services in the last 2 days at the PAO Labor Conference, specifically Belleville and Cancun and Guelph and places that I've spent some time. And the comment I make to them often is this is probably the most important thing we've done in the 12 years I've been here, 13 years, is the commitment and dedication and the resources that are put into organizational wellness. And then again, this year, that's going to increase even more with the people wellness and culture and Deputy Mahar and now Inspector Jameson. So we look forward to the continuing great work by all of them. And I only want to make one comment because it is a positive on the hate-related occurrence that it's actually dropped last year from 146 to 115. That is there's a reporting component to that, and it certainly would be underreported. But it's interesting to see that it's dropped by 35–40%, and I think that's a positive thing as well. We know that we're impacted by things that happen around the world, and Gaza is now a couple of years old, and all the different protests and things that we had to deal with, even more the year before and last year. So it's an interesting trend. We hope it continues.
And ironically, on the drive-in today, I was listening to the news. Apparently, some of those protests are starting up again because of some suggestions by the American president. So we can see more activity in that realm.
The Mediterranean.
Yeah. I think their video has really got people riled up. Anything further on this, members of Samira?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just continuing the conversation, I just wanted to point out that there has been some backlash on planned student protests on public property. I just wanted the community to know that this is a protected right of students by the Canadian Charter of Rights, and they have every right to express themselves and voice their opinions through a peaceful, law-abiding protest. And I just wanted to make sure the community understands that when it comes to school boards or parents, we understand we all have our own biases and opinions, but when it comes to the rights of individuals, the Canadian Charter of Rights protects everybody. That includes students, and I commend students who are courageous enough to take those steps and fight for what they believe in. And I encourage all Halton students to keep doing what they're doing. Their voice matters. And in all the civilizations, it's the students who have brought about really good, positive change in communities.
Thanks, Samira. Ingrid, are you moving this matter?
Yes, I'd like to move it.
It's moved and seconded by, thank you, Nav. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving on to recommendation reports. We have 6 matters before us today. The first is the quality assurance policy. Fred?
Yes, thank you, sir. Last month, the board adopted its ongoing provision of adequate and effective policing policy, which is a policy which Zone Advisor David Tilley is forwarding to the Inspector General as a model for the province. That ongoing provision has 4 steps. The first is assessing community needs, values, and expectations. The second is establishing capacity through policy and objectives in the strategic plan. The third one is resourcing the service to meet those expectations. And then the fourth step is the verification of regarding policing. So that's what this policy is about. It complements the ongoing provision of adequate and effective policing. So the verification process, or the quality assurance process, has two components. The first is verification of the provision of policing, which in itself has three subcomponents. The first is HRPS compliance with board policies regarding provision of policing. Second is progress on the strategic plan. And the third is sufficiency of the HRPS resources. And the second component then is the verification of the governance of the provision of policing. And that has, and that's essentially a verification about those four steps in the provision. Is the board's assessment of community needs, values, and expectations reasonable? Are the board's policies and strategic objectives reasonable? Is the board's approach and decisions regarding resources reasonable? And is the verification process, or the QA process itself, reasonable? So this policy essentially addresses how the board will go about doing each of those things. Regarding one of the key components there regarding the provision of policing itself is the compliance with policy. In the board-only session, we'll be looking at the first draft of a policy revision plan, addressing all of our policies, which we know since the new legislation all have to be updated. So the verification of policy compliance, the devil will be in the details of each of those policing functional plan policies, rather than in this omnibus policy itself. So that's how the system is set up. I know the Inspector General staff is very interested in this one as well. That completes the introduction, sir.
Thank you, Fred. Comments, questions from the board? I'm not seeing any. Command team, comments, questions?
No, it sets up, we've reviewed it, we've worked along with Fred, certainly in developing this. It sets up some interesting scenarios when it comes to verification of resources. There are some areas where we do not have 24-hour coverage with some specialized units. And if that became a discussion under that area, it would be interesting how we would manage that between management and the board. But I think it's well suited, well intentioned, well done, so we'll work with all of it.
Bring back to the board. Do you have any closing remarks?
Only that the new general adequacy standard that the Solicitor General produced a few months ago requires the board to have its own quality assurance process that goes beyond Property Bureau. This is a big evolutionary step in police governance in Ontario, Canada, so we're out front of our peers in this regard, so we'll I imagine that this process itself, like all policies, will be living documents and processes, and I think we're off to a good start.
The best policies are living documents, so make sure they remain relevant. I just want to comment that I'm very thankful and grateful to Fred for the incredible stewardship he's taken of this policy and all these other new policies that have been required under the new legislation and the Inspector General's office. Terrific job, easy to understand, and I appreciate the work that you've done on this. And thanks to the team the command team for their feedback on it as well. So at this time, I'll look for a motion. That motion is that the proposed policy POP04 quality assurance be approved, and that policy BQA001 audits be repealed. Lisa is mover, Samira is seconding. One last chance for comments or questions. All in favor? And that's carried. Well done, Fred. Okay, moving on to 4.2, the Special Investigations Unit SIU Incident Follow-Up Investigation Policy. Fred, you're going to lead us on this too? since you were so deeply involved in the hearings.
Yeah. This flows from the Ahmed inquiry, which was held last summer, and I testified on behalf of the board as well as a subject matter expert for the Inquest Council. That inquest, which is the subsequent report, it had two main recommendations for the board to consider, and this covers one of those two, and it in itself had three components, all of which are addressed here, which is essentially about independence of the investigation and ensuring the board had enough information to be able to render a decision regarding the SIU follow-on investigations. And just to context that, whenever there's an SIU investigation, there's a follow-on investigation that's done by the police service. And this essentially addresses how that part is reported to the board, which is required. So we didn't really have something addressing this matter in the past, certainly not to this extent, and I've working closely with service management to make sure that it's all achievable and makes sense. I think we have covered all of the jury's recommendations and modernized our policy in this regard.
Okay. Members of the board, any comments or questions on this matter? I'm not seeing any. Command team, Chief.
Yeah, I didn't have any questions before, but I just reread the first page, number 4. And I understand the intent of it. So if the subject of the SIU's investigation is the chief or a deputy, which is highly unlikely,
Yeah.
I don't know if the board would be the ones that shall refer it to another police service, or if I would still do that because I do in every other case.
It's
So it's just the word board or chief or
check
we
this
can
or
look at.
verify this, but in the legislation, SIU investigation involving the chief or deputy with follow-on investigation is the responsibility of the board. And this board does not have the in-house capacity.
If they would refer it to another service. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Keep your noses clean. Any further comments or questions? Okay. Not seeing any. So the motion before us is that policy A07, Special Investigation Unit, Incident Follow-up Investigations Policy be approved as proposed, and that policy ADM 13, Special Investigation Reports be repealed. That's the motion. Can I get that from somebody, please? Thank you, Nav. Thank you, Jane. Further comments or questions? All in favor? That's approved. Okay, related to that is 4.3, the actual response to the Ahmed inquiry recommendations. Fred?
Yeah, so the recommendations are listed there, and essentially they cover the follow-on investigation, independence and reporting, which the board's just approved the new policy on. And the second recommendation was regarding considering our total capacity in 3 areas: the tactical team, the emergency response unit, which the tactical team is part, and the crisis negotiators, and they're also part of the emergency support unit. So worked with Kevin on this to craft a response, which essentially summarizes our growth in those capacities, as well as highlighting the ongoing assessment of those needs, which will be more formalized now with our provision of policing policy, provision of adequate and effective policing. And this is one of those areas that the chief alluded to quality assurance policy discussion. So, you know, there is a requirement for the board to consider the adequateness and effectiveness of all of the prescribed policing functions, of which there's about 70, and these are 3 of them, or 2 in particular: the crisis negotiators and the tactical team. So we have the system in place, and we've also increased our capacity significantly since this incident, and both of those things are in this response. The whole response is there in the public portion. I left myself as the main contact in that regard, given my familiarity with this inquest, and the recommendation is that you approve this response, in which case we'll get it sent out. And the deadline is tomorrow.
Comments or questions from the board? Anything from command? Just one question. It had nothing to do with the recommendations, but more on the process itself. Was this particular inquiry done as a luck of the draw, or was there something specifically they were attempting to accomplish?
The inquest.
Pardon me?
The inquest.
The inquest, sorry. Yeah.
It's always done. It was the fatal police shooting at the gas station, so there has to be an inquest. It used to be, actually, in dealing and talking with Dr. Durkheyer, who's the Chief Coroner of Ontario, we had discussions about this. The Chief Coroner used to be able to say, we do not need to have an inquest in this case because of A, B, and C, but that latitude was taken away from him, so he had to have an inquest no matter what.
I've not recalled a circumstance where we've had to go to this level of detail and sending our board staff to testify. It just seems that this was exceptional, and I'm just curious why that happened. Is there a reason why that happened? Like I said, is it luck of the draw, or was there something particular about this case? Ken, did you have
It was exceptional. There was a reason it happened, and it's sort of individually based on the actions of counsel for the coroner.
Okay. Ken, did you have anything further? Or?
That's right, Mr. Chair. The scope of every inquest is established by the presiding officer or coroner in consultation with coroner's counsel. A lot of times the scope will also be impacted somewhat through consultation with the interested parties, the organizations or individuals who seek standing. The scope and determination of what issues were going to be before the jury was effectively set by coroner's counsel, with very little input from the parties themselves.
I'll come back for one last call for questions or comments. Not seeing any, take a motion to approve the recommendation, which is that the proposed response to the Ahmed inquest jury recommendation be approved. Lisa and Jane, thank you. All in favor? That's carried. So in time for your submission requirements.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. 4.3? We cut you off there.
I have nothing else.
Oh, okay. Item 4.4 is capital projects program status, December 31st, 2024. Team, do you have anything to say before we go into this? No? Members of the board, any comments or questions? Okay, motion to approve the recommendation, which is that the Police Services Board approves the closure of various capital accounts as noted in the attached schedule, and that the surplus funds of $5.6 million available be returned to the Police Capital Reserve and the Development Charge Reserves as appropriate, and further, that $600,000 of the surplus funds identified above be allocated to the Police Vehicle Reserve, and further, that T30812V vehicles -2022 be closed, and the overspend of $375,490 be absorbed by the Police Vehicle Reserve and the Development Charge Reserves as appropriate. So that's the motion. Did I get a mover and seconder on that? Yeah, that's it. Jane and Nav, thank you. Comments, questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, 4.5, Motorola Solutions Limited Tender. The report's before you. It's fairly self-explanatory. Does anybody have any questions? Any motion to any comment?
Unbelievable how much some things cost.
Yeah.
But it's such a valuable pieces of equipment.
Absolutely. Lifeline.
I'll move it.
Ingrid's moving. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Samira. All in favor? That is carried. And for the record, that is that the Halton Police Board authorized a limited tendering contract award with Motorola for the provision of 25 mobile radios for approved additional vehicles in 2025 in the amount of $239,094 plus applicable taxes. Okay. So we're moving on to 4.6, which is another tender matters, limited tender, magnet forensics subscription renewal. Members of the board, the report's before you. Do you have any comments or questions? Anything from command? Nothing? Can I get a motion to approve the recommendation, please? Lisa and Jane, all in favor? That is carried. Okay, that brings us to operational verbal updates. I believe Deputy Hill.
We'll deal with something else to do with that after.
Did I do something bad?
No. No. Just a technicality.
Okay. Deputy Hill?
Just some positive news that I wanted to share. As you would have seen in recent media releases, that we are having some really good success when it comes to the auto theft problem. You would have seen recently that our front line made an excellent arrest the other day in Oakville, where one of our really switched on members stopped the vehicle and was able to make an arrest on 2 residents from Quebec who were here for the purposes of stealing vehicles. And I believe one of them was already wanted and on release. So you're going to see that, and this will come to a conclusion that we're getting some amazing responses from our front line. They're very alert to this issue. We're seeing it where they are making a lot of good arrests in this area. In regards to a corporate comms project that we worked on, we had a auto project type of awareness campaign that we ran through January for the purpose of community awareness. We had over 100,000 impressions as a result of that. So we're doing our part to make sure we're out there alerting people to the issue. Coupled with what I mentioned in camera, we're currently sitting at a 42% reduction when it comes to the amount of vehicles that are be stolen. So we are seeing 42%.
42%.
42, we're almost there.
Wow.
Not there.
Time to revise the strat plan.
Let's slow down. Slow down. I can't afford
3 more years.
I'm already tactically combing this hair. I can't afford to lose any more. But it is, it's an entire police service response. It's not just investigations, it's the front line, it's our corporate comms team, it's everybody doing their part, and it's now finally having something that we can point to.
That's a pretty good piece of work there, Deputy.
Thinking about getting plugs to cover.
I wasn't talking about that. I wasn't talking about your hair. I was talking about the auto theft reduction.
Turkey together.
Lisa has a question?
Thank you so much for that update. I know it's appreciated by the community far and wide. I'm wondering if that level of a reduction is also paralleling with the reduction in violent carjackings.
Yeah, we are definitely still seeing some. The numbers were never the same. We do have, you mentioned it offline again, some other things that were specific to the home invasion front. I don't have, I'll have to get back with you on the numbers on that. The home invasion isn't a number that we keep available to us, which probably should, just because of how it's classified in regards to either it's a break and enter or a robbery. It's not classified as a home invasion. But it is an area that we're still super sensitive to. We've made some really good arrests recently in that. You've seen that, again, uniformed members recently grabbed a bunch of people that were trying to did do a violent home invasion. We were successful in making an arrest as they were fleeing the scene. But I'll get back to you with some specific steps in regards to what the actual reduction is.
Thank you.
I know anecdotally I've read less of late, and I think members of Oakville Council have heard less of late, so I don't want to jinx us, so I'll leave it general.
It's true. But it'd be good to get a statistical update at some point in the near future. Thank you. It's top of mind with everybody in our community, both that and the auto thefts everybody's talking about it, and I think there's good news, clearly, so keep up the good work. Thank the team for us, that's great. And we'll have to check that strategic plan and see if there's a Just for the record, the strategic plan is to reduce by 50% in 4 years.
Oh, I'm very aware what it said.
Okay.
Well, it says within 4 years. So if we hit 50% at any point.
You have to keep going. We have to get to 100%. That'll never happen. Okay. Anything further from verbal updates?
Through the chair, a few things. As you know, February is Black History Month, and our EDI team has organized a number of events over the course of the last 30 days. We had a flag-raising event as well. We partnered with some of our external partners on some internal educational programs, as well as a couple of community events that were very formative. I participated in one of them, the Black Artists Symposium. It's a very interesting event. The Polar Plunge also took place in February. I talked a little bit about that at the last board meeting. It was a significant success. It was organized by Constable Halton, who is a constable in our community services unit. It's 72 participants and raised a total of $19,000 that's going to go towards Special Olympics. One particular team out of one district, we had some team competitions. They raised alone $1,500. That was worthwhile. And just in some conversations I've had with the organizers and some other members of the organization, I can see this becoming sort of a signature event moving forward, an annual event. It certainly was worthwhile. I think Deputy Hill and I can assure you that the water is extremely cold, colder than probably you can imagine, but it was definitely a very meaningful event. And I commend Alison and the members of the community services team for putting that together.
I can assure you it was cold too, because they both told me it was.
Well, I was there vicariously living through all three of the deputies and the members of the service. It took me several days to warm up.
Another success story, last Saturday, a team of members led by Detective Lindsay Murray organized a volleyball tournament, a members volleyball tournament. Used to years ago have a very successful internal volleyball tournament. It was for many years a signature event, cultural event. They have decided to sort of re-energize this program. I tended just to watch some of the events. It was a very competitive level of volleyball in some of the games. They raised $5,200 in charity in a variety of ways. It's going to go to the HRPA Benevolent Fund, association fund that is in place to assist members of the organization in times of need. So I want to commend that group for that event. I can also, much like the Polar Plunge, I can see that event getting back on our sort of our corporate post-COVID world, where we're going to getting back on some of these very positive internal events. And Operation Northern Exposure, which I believe you've probably heard from in the past, is ramping up. We are sending 6 officers on March 24th on a 2-week deployment. The officers will be working in pairs with officers from the NAPS Police Service, which is the Anishinaabe-Aski Police Service. They'll be working in communities Kashewan, Fort Albany, as well as Attawapiskat. We are going to be ensuring that they have continuous organizational wellness support throughout their duration, and as well as after the deployment. This unique partnership allows our officers to build positive relationships with their NAPS counterparts, listening and learning about what policing looks like in a northern community, Indigenous community, and how it differs from policing in Southern Ontario, as well as the similarities that are there as well. It also provides our officers with valuable insights into Indigenous culture firsthand. And this year, we're adding as a requirement of their participation in the program, these 6 officers will be part of an educational piece that will be delivered to the rest of the service on some key takeaways from this, often life-changing experience that they have encountered, which will help raise their own cultural competence in the area of Indigenous members in our community. And lastly, but not least, I would be remiss in recognition of International Women's Day that is coming up on Saturday. I think I would be remiss if I didn't introduce 5 members of our team that are behind me. I want to acknowledge them, introduce them, and thank them all. We are fortunate. The chief and deputies are fortunate to have them as part of our leadership team. I know personally they help me on a daily basis with their insight and their perspective, and it has shaped many of my decisions. Let's start with Inspector Steph Jamison, who you introduced briefly. She's promoted a couple weeks ago, and she's setting up our new People, Culture, and Wellness unit that I'll speak about at a future meeting once it's fully formed. Sergeant Amy McGuire. Amy heads up our EDI team and does some tremendous work in that area. Staff Sergeant Kelly Bloor, who is a staff officer and assists the deputies and the chief high in a number of different ways on a daily basis. And I will turn, and we have Louise Moore, one of our key managers in our HR team, and last but not least, Sarah Harwood, another mentor in our HR team. So I just want to thank them all in acknowledgement of Saturday's International Women's Day. Thank them for all their hard work, and they are really a big part of the success of our organization.
And we should probably acknowledge the fact that we have a very, very capable and amazing executive assistant communications advisor in our office as well, Jessica Warren, in recognition of Women's Day as well. And I would like to point out, and I wish I had saved this clip. I was doom scrolling the other day, and a news article popped up, and I sent it off to my friends at CAPG, but I can't find it. But it had a chart of the number of female sworn officers and services across Canada, and we were at the top of the list. We were number one. Yeah, we were 26%. Is that the number?
I think it was 27.
Okay, who's missing over one? Oh, you're counting. So congratulations to the whole service for that effort, and thank you for raising up your team. That's excellent. And I think my board colleagues would agree. We'd love to hear an update on the Northern Exposure experience this year. We always enjoy those presentations because it helps us, of course, vicariously live that experience too through our team in the field. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And are you warmed up yet? Are you?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Feet and toes are still coming back.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Anything further?
And now for something completely different.
Okay.
I wanted to speak with the board just briefly about another very important unit that we have within the service, and it's a different unit. It's our pipes and drums. The board members will be familiar with that unit, probably mainly from our graduation ceremonies, but they perform at so many other public functions, just represent the service, as you know so well, at memorials, parades. They have to split up, I think, to do all of the Santa Claus parades because they're under great demand. But from time to time, they have an opportunity to do a trip and highlight themselves and take part in a variety of celebrations and ceremonies. The board members that have been here for a few years now would recall they went to Bermuda at one point to play in some government-related events there, and the board was able to fund them, I believe, $15,000. This spring, they will be traveling to Holland. The purpose of that trip is to play in a variety of ceremonies recognizing the liberation of Holland and anniversaries. One of those events is a large parade in Apeldoorn. I've seen a video of that parade. It is at such a level that the video that was provided to me from a few years ago, Prime Minister Harper spoke at that parade. So there are a number of different dignitaries that will be there, not all from Canada, but from around the world. They'll be playing in ceremonies, last post ceremonies in Canadian cemeteries, and it's a huge event for them. 3 members of our honor guard will also travel with them, so they'll be carrying the flags, and then John Guy, who you'll know was the largest hat and that leads that band, is somewhat of a war historian himself. So he's set up a number of, as I said, the cemeteries they'll play in. From Holland at one point, they are going to travel to Ypres in France and to Vimy and play there as well, and then return to Holland and travel home. Most of the trip they fund themselves, either from personal finances, and also the band over the years receives funds from different sources, which they sometimes use for equipment, but they also have some, I call them reserve funds, I guess, for travel. So they'll be paid for some of the events that they play in, some of the Santa Claus parades, I believe, is one example. So they do a fair bit of fundraising. There is only one member of that entire band who is a current serving member of the Halton Regional Police. No, there's two, sorry. There's a snare drummer and John Guy. And then there's Superintendent Perkins, who's retired. The rest of the entire band are citizen volunteers who represent us and wear those uniforms so proudly. So I wanted to bring that forward and provide that opportunity or discussion point for the board for consideration of assisting them with funding, because they do so much on their own, and it has been done before as well.
So I just want to clarify something you said. When you said they get paid, you mean they, as in the band themselves, get paid for not the individual members. They are volunteers.
The individual members are completely volunteer, hundreds of hours a year, including practice time and different things as well. So,
and I presume as well that the serving sworn members that are in the band are performing in their own time as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And no taxpayers' dollars are allocated to this?
No, we do have, the board has invested in some of their equipment. I remember new drum kits, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and the new emblems on the bass drum, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So some of the equipment is certainly has been supported by the board. But
not through tax funds, though. That's supporting the community fund.
I think it has been through the community fund.
Yeah. Okay. So members of the board, as the Dean of Council, I guess, I've been here a long time, we typically do fund through the community fund the activities of the pipes and drums. So this is not an unusual request. And what say you on this request? You support it?
Yeah.
Would you like to move a motion?
Motion, yes.
The motion is to fund them to the, what was the request?
I think 15,000 would help them considerably and has been done before.
What is the overall cost, by the way?
I think between 30 and 40,000.
40,000.
They are minimizing their costs wherever they can. Obviously, they have airfare, which they've already booked, and they will be staying sort of in police and army barracks type of things. They're not staying in 4- or 5-star hotels.
Okay, I'm assuming you have a question, but can I get a seconder to get it on the floor first, please?
Not ready to second it.
Okay. So seconder, okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Just a question. So I think it's indisputable that this is a noble cause to support, and especially since Appledorn is Burlington's sister city. Just wondering, from an administrative side, can we receive a memo on this that we can vote on, or how will we capture this in the minutes as a verbal motion? What's the motion?
The motion is to fund the pipes and drums to the extent of $15,000 from our community fund, which is, like, again, it typically does.
I agree,
Yeah.
but it's an operational verbal update. Why is it not an item?
I can't answer that question.
The motion was locked in.
Yeah, in fairness, the chief has raised this with me in the past, and it probably should have been presented as a memo today in some format, and I'll take the fall for not following up on that. So, but I hopefully that will not be an impediment to supporting the pipes and drums initiative.
Again, that's what I led with.
Yeah.
Certainly you have my support for the cause and the debenture. Maybe we can just receive a correspondence and put it in the correspondence section then, at least.
I do have a draft board report, which I could, through Graham, distribute after the meeting, which lays out sort of all the things they're doing.
Okay. So can I change the motion then to approve it in spirit and then follow up with a board report next month?
I think the timing will work on that.
I think they really need to know now. They're going, they fly to Holland on April 30th.
Yeah, so I'll support it, but I'd like to see something captured.
Can I suggest that the motion that to achieve what the timing that they're suggesting that that motion be slightly changed, that the amount be approved subject to the receipt of a board memo.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You have enough to release the funds, but then just the trail.
Follow up so that it's paper
to-
trail.
Paper trail.
Yeah.
I will do that.
I have a comment. Now that's.
Oh, no, I was just, to what Lisa said, I was simply gonna say, we could approve it conditional, like, and like we did with one of the other ones.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have the memo and the paper trail because we are as a board working through that policy, so we wanna implement some consistency.
Yes.
To be fair to the entire region, right?
100%.
100% support it, ready to provide the funds, and as a condition that within the next couple of weeks, we get the formal.
I think the memo could be available to us even sooner than that. So that was what I was suggesting for a friendly amendment to the motion. So I would put a timeline on it and say that a memo to be received by March 3rd.
Yeah, that's
Would that be okay?
No, it'll be received in 5 minutes.
Well, that's by March 3rd, so.
I have comments.
Yes, please.
The total cost is around 45,000.
Okay.
Okay, before you have comments, is anyone prepared to second this now? Because we.
Now I'll second
Thank you.
it.
Lisa seconded, so it's been moved. And to be clear, the motion is to provide funding from the community fund to the extent of $15,000, conditional upon the receipt of a memo in support, a staff report in support of the request.
March 3rd.
By March 3rd. That's the motion. So it's been moved and seconded, and I have Samira on the speakers list.
I just wanted to make sure that the number we are funding is consistent with what response we give to all the other organizations that apply. Recently, we have maxed ourselves at $10,000 per request, even though the request was for 25 or 30. And I just want to understand where the number 15,000 is coming from.
Okay.
It's a third of 45. Yeah, it's just to prevent them from having to further fund themselves personally when they're in a volunteer.
No, I get all of
Yeah.
that, but my question is with regards to the board and the pattern the board adopts for other organizations. In essence of all fairness, that is my question. So I do support the intent, and I really support what they are doing, but I also want to make sure that we are consistent in how we release these funds, and there is some fairness to it.
Well, I can speak to that a bit, having been around for a while. We have, over the years, funded organizations from a couple $1,000s to $25,000 and more.
Yeah.
We recently funded Crime Stoppers, which is also a quasi dotted line non-arm's length organization, or arm's length organization, I should say, to the tune of $49,000. So there is some history. We are working on a policy to establish what those parameters are, and this will inform that, obviously, but we are not doing anything, frankly, exceptional in terms of the level of funding. We certainly do assess each application on a case-by-case basis to determine, how we allocate our funds, and that's, we will continue to develop that policy going forward to figure out what formula we apply to it. But again, this is not precedent setting, and we certainly have provided funding from that community fund for larger amounts in the past as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, maybe just to support Councillor Samira there, maybe in the memo we could say, as we have drafted the new policy and the limit is 10,000, based on the previous history, we are going to make an exception going forward, just to make sure, there's a lot of organizations from Halton that we want to come to us. I'm 100% supportive of the 15,000, but to the public, we want to make sure that we're consistent. So we're not saying 10,000 to one and then 15. And I agree, we had discussed in the policy, which is still being drafted, that there's going to be partner organizations like the band, like Crime Stoppers, which are going to be availing more than the 10,000, which we are okay with, but we want to be consistent. So maybe we could change the wording, because we don't want to think that another group may have applied for 20 and we set our cap as 10, and then we're picking and choosing, right? Just on the wording, I don't know how you want to phrase it.
As gentle pushback on that, this is not an exception, because as I've stated, we have granted this band similar amounts. We recently granted Crime Stoppers for 8,000, so I appreciate the spirit of what you're saying, but I don't really want to say we're making an exception in the motion because we're not really making an exception at this point.
But I'm just saying we need to be clear in the motion because just, I think, at last meeting, we had presented that we were gonna do 10,000. And I think all of us are in agreement of that we had agreed on that, and that we were gonna look for a second category, which would allow for additional, like a larger amount. So I'm saying that because we don't have the policy in play, we could say that we are gonna do the 15,000. Going forward, we would qualify this in the second category, right?
Yeah. I'll let her get back to her seat. Jessica is the, our EA/communications advisor, is a drafter of that policy. Did we actually discuss a $10,000 cap other than discussion internally, or?
It was discussion internally and basically determined that we were pausing applications while the process is currently under review, and that's what we told other organizations
Okay.
that have pending applications.
So I think, like I said, the spirit of what you're saying, I absolutely agree with. Because we don't have a policy at this point, I'm just concerned about stating it as being an exception at this point. But if we could certainly put wording in there that staff be requested to determine appropriate funding levels for applications going forward.
If it makes sense for 20, I'm all for 20, but I'm just saying is we want to be consistent because we don't want any community group to feel.
And I agree with that. And I do think that we have to have some kind of formula, but I hate to put a limit or suggest that we are going to put a limit on at this point because there's some good, for example, the neighborhood or the crime community watch program was, I think, an exceptional cause, and that warranted a $49,000 increase to the Crime Stoppers budget so they can deliver that program. So I just want to be careful and intentional with our wording, but I do support the spirit of what you're saying, and I think the wording could be that further the staff consider and report back on appropriate levels of funding for future applications. Did you capture that, Graham?
Yes, I have.
Is the mover and seconder okay with that friendly revision?
Yes.
Okay. Further comments or questions? Before we do that, I do want, so I probably am responsible for dropping the ball on this. The chief has spoken to me, so the fairness of the chief has spoken to me about this. I had intended actually to discuss it with you this morning, but other matters took over the meeting, so I do apologize, and I will also undertake to ensure that I'm a better steward of these sorts of requests. So I apologize if that happens today. I take full responsibility for it not going through proper channels because it was going through proper channels until I unfortunately missed bringing that forward. So with that, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed?
No, not opposed. All in favor.
You're either in or
No,
okay. All in favor? Okay.
I have raised my hand and then put it down.
Okay. Carrie, thank you.
Graham has the report.
So do you.
So you achieved the March 3rd deadline. Well done.
I like to be ahead.
While you're looking, so Graham, can we just add that as an addendum to the agenda? Is that possible?
Yep.
Okay, and then it closes the loop? Thank you.
Good idea. I think that would, because we're in the midst of the meeting, I think that would require a separate motion, would it not?
I just asked him to add it to new business.
Yeah, we'll just add
So
it.
is that a new business? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. If no one objects, I can take care of it.
Thank you. Okay, receipt of public correspondence, or action registry.
Thank you, sir. The first three items are policies. There are specific board motions as part of the larger policy project, the first draft of which we'll discuss in board only. So subsequent to your concurrence with that approach, we'll roll these into that project and take them off this list. The next item is shared service agreements or assistance agreements, and province-wide, as you heard from David Tilley last month, we're we're waiting for the OPP template on shared service, what used to be called shared services, to be developed and shared across the province, and then we'll work it through. I'll work it through with management and look forward to. The next item is about service performance reports, or essentially the overall statistics, performance statistics, and we're expecting that, I guess, next month, probably.
We'll try to do our first report next month, and I just made a note to the deputies on the second point about that, statistics regarding repeat offenders, so we'll have to deal with our analytical people on getting some of that information.
Okay, thanks. In April, we're expecting an update from Crime Stoppers, which you just alluded to, the grant that they got. And then the community fund application thing that Jessica's working on. Aiming for next month, we'll see. A lot of work to do between now and then still on that one. That completes the action registry.
One question.
Ingrid has a question.
I have one question, Mr. Chair, and that is from the last action registry. We had this item from 25th of April, 2024. Motion ID 3.2, that we directed to look at ways to support the new community initiatives for the Community Watch programs, and what the Court HRPS would be willing to invest in terms of time and resources. And we had said we should move this to Q2.
So
Q2.
So we've had the presentation, you recall, from Crime Stoppers, and now that's combined with eclipsed by another resolution from the end of October, and they're both now combined in this one for today's agenda, in today's action registry.
So with the new item 4.2, 4.3 as of December 24?
Yes.
Okay, so it's in there?
Well, we've already made the financial donation. Service has addressed how they're helping, so now we're hearing back on how that's going to work. That's the item that's still on the action registry.
So that's under the Community Watch?
Yep.
Okay.
And just an update, Community Watch has launched, and the pilot has started, and so we are expecting that fundraising report to include an update on their launch, as well as some course corrections that I think that the board is aware need to be achieved.
So that's incorporated into the
Yes.
last item on
Yes.
the current action registry.
Yeah, and I just for the record, Jessica is riding herd on this particular program quite closely, and she will ensure that report and delegation is present to give us an update.
Perfect, thank you.
Motion to receive the action registry, please.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Ingrid. Seconded by Samira. Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving on to receipt of public correspondence. You received several items, or some items of public correspondence. In fact, 6 items. Can I get a motion to receive those? Lisa and Nav, sorry, or that's Jane's hand? I can't really see Nav and Jane through Lisa.
My fluffy hair.
Your fluffy hair. I have to insist on transparency at this board.
No fluffy hair.
No fluffy hair. All in favor of receipt of the public correspondence? Thank you. Matt, that's fluffy hair as well.
Very little at that.
We had new business, so that will be the discussion of the pipes and drums will be, I guess, in the minutes under new business. So that was a matter of new business. Is there anything further to bring up under new business? Lisa.
So just a comment around new business. I tried my very best in the spirit of the Northern Experience to attend with the board's support the Empowering First Nations Governance Conference. It was being held in the Tsuut'ina Nation in Alberta, to the west of Calgary. And despite my best efforts, the rolling challenges with the airports, I was flying out the day after a plane crash. was just absolutely not able to make it. I've been able to mitigate any financial challenges that were a result of that and coordinated with Jessica to receive any of the information that can be available, and I will share it with the board once we have that information and any insights that they can share through the registration. So it was very important to me to try my very best to attend this conference because we do speak very mindfully around the relationship between policing and police governance and First Nations and our Indigenous community members. And so when we say the Indigenous land recognition at the beginning of every meeting, I think it's really important that we back that up with information about learning and unlearning and bringing up best practices and better practices through the board. So I did put my best efforts in, but they just were not enough this time. So maybe next time.
Thanks, Lisa. I will comment that, I know how stressed Lisa was to try to get there because I was getting constant text updates, and I kind of knew when the incident happened at the airport the day before, it would have been challenging, and I've heard lots of people have lost their flights, and there were a few people who weren't able to go to the conference other than you. I will say that this conference sponsored by CAPG was quite a success. Teddy Miniboons, who is our CAPG fellow board member, as well as the chair of the Indigenous Policing Committee at CAPG, should be commended for organizing a first-class conference that was, from all accounts, from the many people I know that have attended it, very successful, and some great action items came out of that I'll be pleased to report on when I get those updates through my work at CAPG.
And you did a good job sharing insights through social media and using stories, so I was able to follow that and reach out directly through our messaging to kind of get little updates and things. So it should absolutely be commended.
Yeah, I will pass your comments along. He's an awesome fellow and doing a great job in his position, and we're very grateful to have him at CAPG. Anything further for new business? Samira?
Not new business, but just a comment to add and thank our services for their help and support to the town and region employees during the snow event, which was significant. And I got calls from so many seniors telling me that an officer was just passing by on his cruiser, got out of his car, and asked for the second shovel and helped them clear their driveway and sidewalk. And our officers do that quietly behind the scenes, and we never talk about it. So I want to take this opportunity to commend them for the good work they do. That is certainly, the taxpayer dollars going the right direction and being used the right way. And we thank them for their volunteer work, because this is the volunteer work they do in the community, and stretch themselves far more than what they sign for. So thank you to all of those, especially first constables who are new on the job and, have the right spirit for the community.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That's a great story.
Yeah.
I wish they would come and shovel out my windrows in front of my car. Yeah, would you come and do that for me?
That'd be a conflict. Chief, just the band has already expressed their gratitude. Somehow they found out about the board support. So
good work.
I understand there is at least one person or a contingent from maybe the city of Burlington that's going to be at that. One of those events in Appledorn as well.
They're the best. Mandalization committee.
Kevin and I and a number of Louise and Sarah and Senior Officers Association and HRPA were able to attend the PAO Labor Conference most of the last 2 days. Some of them were there for the whole 2 days. Ellie and three of our hockey teams are actually in Durham region this morning, playing in the International Police Hockey Tournament, or Ellie would be here as well, but relatively good and informative conference. So, and also a great networking opportunity for HRPA and SOA and ourselves to be at in that environment. And other than that, and the sensitivity around all the comments about hair, I think that's done.
Please don't file a report. Fluffy hair.
It's not one of the covered grounds.
It's not the charter. Okay. That's all for new business. I will move into our next matter of business, which is to how do I do this now? So we're not going to close session, a confidential session, we're going into board only. So we're sort of doing this in the opposite direction. So I need a motion to resolve into a session closed to the board, or closed to only the board. Can I get that motion, please? Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Nav. All in favor? That's carried. So we are moving into a session for board only, and it is now 10:50. I'm going to call a recess until 11, let's go 11:10, 11:05. So give it 15 minutes to refresh yourselves, members of the board, and we'll see you, Chief, for the first portion. Thank you, everybody, to those watching on YouTube. Thank you very much for tuning in to pay close attention to the activities of your Halton Police Board. We want to remind everybody that today is Election Day in the province of Ontario, so if you haven't done so already, please make sure you get out and vote. It's a very important aspect of our responsibilities as citizens. We want to congratulate our friends in the Caribbean and African Canadian communities for a successful Black History Month, which concludes tomorrow, so there's still time to partake in some of their events. I know they've got a long list of activities, and I know that most of you have attended a few, but certainly there's still some time. And as my friend Andrew Terrell reminds me that, while February is Black History Month, it needs to be recognized 365 days a year, not just those in the case of February 28th. So congratulations to our friends in CCAH and all the other organizations across all regions that, and to the individuals who support Black History Month and make that month so awesome in our community. So thank you for that. Members of the board, we are now in recess until 11:15. Thank you to the staff